guys, welcome back to another video. So I have this illustration right here, and unfortunately I don't like the end result, and the audio did not record for the video as it was going to be a start to finish video. So I am going to scrap that footage. So instead, I'm going to actually do a little drawing based off of a sketch that I did in my sketchbook of my OC Masaki and Kaisen. So I have them sketched out with these little like heart sunglasses, which I thought kind of fit more of a summery vibe. Now, I did not have a plan in terms of where I wanted to take this illustration into what direction. So I'm gonna let you guys follow along with me as I make certain decisions for today's drawing. So to start off, I was thinking I was going to do my normal kind of coloring style, or like the painterly style, where I will do what I'm doing right now, which is doing a rough sketch. After that, I will do a cleaner sketch. So the rough sketch helps me plan out the positioning of the characters or trying to fit stuff into a composition. I decided to go with a square canvas rather than the usual A5 or even the A4 size canvases that I tend to use, which tend to be more taller than wide. But I thought square would be fun, and it's kind of more suitable for if I want to post, let's say, on Instagram. It's just an easier format that way. Now with the rough sketch kind of out of the way, I'll lower the opacity a fair amount and then go ahead make a new layer so we can draw on top and actually start with our cleaner sketch. So at this point, I was still thinking that I was going to do a more like normal illustration style. So I was going to keep my sketch as clean as possible, clean up on the way, make sure that lines are, fairly easy to read, and trying to make sure that things were going to be more or less like finalized rather than keeping everything sketchy. And the reason why I'm saying that is that I'm not going to end up coloring the way that I usually do, which you guys can probably tell from today's thumbnail, as the color palette might be a little bit different alongside with probably just the general style of it, and like in general is quite different from how I usually work. So yeah, we'll talk about that once we get there. For the most part, I guess it could be the inspiration for it. Like whenever I open up Pinterest and I went on like a whole thing about looking for clothing and outfits for my OCs, because it is summertime where I live, I was looking up a lot of summer outfits, and there were some like kind of cute pictures of people wearing like funky kind of glasses. I do like the typical one, like the one that I'm gonna give Masaki and Kaisen, which tend to be like the heart-shaped lenses, and they have like a subtle gradient going through them, and I just think they're so fun. But also I just wanted to draw something a little bit more summery, and what's better than drawing something summery with someone I'm more familiar with, which tend to be my OCs. So I think it was mostly because I was already drawing Summertime Masaki from a previous sketchbook doodles session where I did, I think, like a 3-color or 4-color marker spread in my sketchbook, and I thought it would just be fun to draw Masaki and Kaisen together. And then I'm gonna do, hopefully before summer ends, so probably somewhere at the near end of August to early September, I want to do a larger illustration of all of my OCs, kind of either at the beach or some kind of summertime activity of some sort, because I think it could be cute. Maybe it's a festival, maybe it's just at the beach hanging out doing something, because it would be nice to have an illustration that has all my OCs encompassed. So I will try my best to remember that for the future, but hopefully I will be able to do that, and I'll definitely take you guys along with me if I do end up doing that. So I'm placing Kaisen in. Kaisen, in terms of, in comparison to the one that I did in my sketchbook, is going to look a little bit different. So I'm going to change his expression a little bit, and just the way he's positioned his body over Masaki, because I wanted him to be very like arm over his shoulder, him kind of like reaching out to whoever's taking the photo or the picture, or just reaching out to us, I guess. And for the most part, I followed it pretty closely. But like I said, I kind of changed his expression to be a little bit more cheekier in a sense. For some reason, I keep drawing him with his tongue like sticking out, like what kind of emotion. I don't know how to explain it. I've been just doodling him a lot in more like a chibi form. Maybe I'll talk about this in the future We'll see, because I don't know if I'm gonna record the whole process or if I'm gonna record it at all. But I've been getting a lot of. Actually, I'm trying to think what spurred on this before I ended up searching for like specific references. Is like Nui plushes, and I think they're called like Nui Gurumi. So basically, they're like hand-sewn plushes, and I have made one in the past of my OC Masaki, which I have a video on if you want to watch the process. He came out very derpy, but still, I think like for the most part, he was very cute, and it was like one of my first like little sewing and embroidery projects that I ended up doing like as like start to finish. So I thought it'd be fun to make just much smaller versions, but I would love to have one of Masaki and one of Kaisen. I think I want one of Kaisen just because it would be nice just to make something out of the black fabric that I do have, versus Masaki. Obviously, I already have the colors for him from the previous project, but also I just think it would be cute just to have the two of them, just because it would be nice for one of them to have a companion. Because the thing I've been seeing online the most, and I do own 4 Niji puppets as well, so like little, they're kind of like plushes basically, but I keep them like in little fabric pouches that hang on my wall. And I have Albin, I have Pomu, I have Ike, and Kaidaharu. Oh no, I have Reimu, so I have 5. So I do have those, but I feel like they're a little bit too precious, or maybe it's because they feel expensive, that I don't want to bring them around too much because I'm scared I'm gonna lose them, or mostly it's just because I'm scared to lose them, because you can always just wash them if you need to. But I think it'd be fun to make some of my own OCs and just carry them around every time I go traveling and stuff, just to take photos. Now, unfortunately, I don't think I can make one in time before I have to go to AnimeFon, but it'd be nice to do that, to do like small little updates. So I think I did this in the past with my Bonbongi plush when I went to Japan, but yeah, it was just like a fun way to take photos, and I didn't really have to be present in them, but it wasn't just like normal touristy photos kind of thing. It's just nice to have something else present in the photo. But before I get too sidetracked, let's talk about what's happening in the video. So I guess like I went through a little bit of back and forth, and then I ended up sorting all my layers to be kind of ready for inking rather than doing some kind of painterly process or coloring, just like my usual method. So instead, I think in the JingSketches Brush set, there is a fountain dip pen. I think there's a dip pen, and then there's a fountain diagonal dip pen. So I am using the diagonal one, and I'm using it kind of as the inking brush for today. So it is a little bit more difficult for me to use because I don't think I fully grasped where it's going diagonal in terms of like, is it the direction of the line? Is it where my canvas is also positioned? I didn't really figure it out. So sometimes I get really thin lines like right here. Sometimes I get really thick lines, and I don't know, it's like a little bit easier for me to be a little bit looser because the lines are already a little bit inconsistent, and it just leans into a little bit more of a messier line art for myself. So I decided to just stick with it and make sure that I wasn't going to be too hung up on having like what I would consider like the perfect line art, so I wouldn't be too stuck on it, so I can move on and just, you know, finish the line work, and then we can add colors or whatever we want to do afterwards. So the main reason I kind of wanted to do more of an inking style is that I wanted to pick a color palette that's a little bit more on the bolder side, and I didn't really want to paint with the color palette per se, but I wanted to do something with more like cell shading accompanied by some kind of bolder line work. So for me, I'm just going to play around with the line work by doing some hatching here and there. For Kaisen, because he does have a lot of black areas and just like his black hair, he has a black kind of like modern kimono styled, I guess like cardigan or kind of like overshirt or a top. So because this color palette's are going to be very dark, I am going to kind of play around to see what I can do with like either solid fills, or we can do hatching, or am I going to do it by my flat colors. So I kind of juggle around to see what fits. I did end up changing their wardrobe a little bit. They are matching the ones in my sketchbook. So Masaki is wearing a button-up shirt with a undershirt underneath, probably just a t-shirt. And then Kaisen is wearing kind of a shorter sleeved I think it's kimono styled shirt. So basically the way it opens and the way it could be tied is similar to a kimono. I've seen like modern versions of these that people have been sporting like every so often. And then he has a kind of like a deeper V-neck as well. And I thought it would just be easier. I was debating though, I was gonna change today's video if the one of Firefly was not gonna work, which it didn't. But the kind of like substitute video that I was gonna do, if it wasn't this one, was going to be me doing a wardrobe type of thing. A way for me to categorize and collect almost. How would I explain this? It's almost like a doll like way of keeping all my OC's clothings and outfit kind of like organized. So I was gonna make a base for all of my OCs and then do like some kind of undershirt or undergarment so that, you know, they're not bare naked. And then we could do almost like cut out paper doll style and mix and match their outfits, or I'll do like full outfits so I can kind of swap them back and forth if I need to. And I thought it'd be just like a cute way to keep record of their outfits. So technically, I have done an outfit video for all of my OCs in terms of, I think it's just drawing a bunch of different outfits in a more sketchier style. And I've done drawing random outfits that Pinterest has given me. And I did that for Masaki. And I kind of want to do that kind of version, but like chibi form, and I get to pick their outfits. So one, I can learn more about clothing. And then two, I think it'd just be fun to kind of just accumulate their own wardrobes so I can kind of pick and choose clothings for them. So kind of back to the drawing of Kaisen, I ended up doing a mixture of some really dark flats here and there for his hair. I also ended up doing some hatching for some, just to vary up the texture and also just to vary up the value. But some areas that I found that were a little bit too dark, I decided to use the eraser version of the same brush and kind of go back and hatch in some lighter areas, kind of like in the opposite way to create more of a gradient back into the hair. So it just kind of becomes a little bit softer. I think for Masaki's versus Kaisen, I definitely played a lot more around with his hair versus Masaki. Masaki does have a kind of medium brown like warm chestnut brown kind of hair color, so it's like not super dark and it's not super light. So I did find it a little bit difficult to see, like, do I like really hatch all of his hair, or do I leave it blank and only do an indication of like highlight band or something like that? Black hair is just, for me, it's a little bit more fun to mess around with. But definitely in the future, when I want to learn a little bit more about inking, or if I want to make like comic making and stuff, I am going to find a good way to kind of balance out how I want to distribute value a little bit better than just normal hatching, probably. I don't know. I have a lot of fun just playing around with inking, but I definitely struggle with it a lot. And I don't think I found the method that I want to use per se. So we'll kind of experiment a little bit back and forth, probably throughout the year as well. Now, luckily, my line art is pretty clean for the most part in some areas, so I was able to use the bucket tool, and then we can add texture by erasing. So because Kaisen's shirt or jacket or whatever he's wearing is on the darker side, filled it in with a nice black flat, and then we use the eraser to kind of do a simple little hatching to give it a little bit of texture and just more information on the clothing so it doesn't look like a black void. Then we are moving on to Masaki. So for Kaisen, because he's mostly facing forward, I did end up flipping his eyes and then changing the positioning of the highlight so that it doesn't look like he's cross-eyed. But for Masaki, I am doing the eyes first, and then I already had the glasses from Kaisen's version. Oh, I guess for the glasses, this is probably going to be more apparent on... actually, for two different reasons. I guess for Kaisen, it might be a little bit easier to see where the glasses are because it's lighter in terms of where it is placed on his hair. So because his hair is black, everywhere surrounding it's gonna be pretty dark. And I made the decision that I want the inside of the lens to be a lot lighter so we can kind of differentiate a little bit. And then for Masaki, we kind of have the opposite. So Masaki's hair is going to be somewhat on the lighter side, so I'll end up shading in the glasses instead to make sure that there's some difference and to make sure that these glasses look more like sunglasses and they're a little bit more tinted or have some kind of color rather than it being like those empty frames that people could literally poke your fingers through. Yeah. Eh. Oh, I'm trying to think. Yeah, I think in the future I am going to fiddle around with the brushes a little bit more, or I'm going to see if I can make a brush for myself. I definitely think having a brush that already has a lot of texture for someone like me helps a lot to make sure I don't make my lines need to be super clean and pristine, because something I notice is that when my lines are super clean, I notice more mistakes. I don't like what it looks like because it's so crisp and clean. I need a little bit of texture and allow myself to let myself do like hatching and shading and like line width variation, and leaving it in a state of where I can kind of do it almost in a sketchier way kind of helps me a lot. So I might see if I can find other brush packs from other people, or I'll kind of fiddle around and adjust some of the settings on already downloaded brushes, or I'll make my own. And when I find a good kind of conclusion to having a good brush that I like for line art for the most part, on Procreate like specifically, because I think it's a little bit easier for me to find stuff on Clip Studio Paint because their asset library is so huge. But if I find one, I'll let you guys know and I'll show you guys probably in a demo or something, because it could be fun to do more inking in the future anyways. So because I ended up doing the line art, that means that I finally kind of made one decision. So like I said, because I was doing the line art, I wanted to add some bolder colors. Now the colors in question, I was kind of flip-flopping between. So you can see I was going to start with like a lighter yellow, then I went with like kind of more of a medium yellow, back to this lighter yellow, and then I thought, oh, maybe I'll change the color of my lines to be something a little bit more fun and a little bit bold. So I went kind of back and forth. I went to a blue, I think I went to a turquoise, I went to a purple, and then I changed the background to be this purpley blue, adding some highlights here just to kind of do a test to see if I wanted to do something more monochromatic instead. But in the end, I think I still wanted something a little bit more summery. So I went ahead, selected the outside of my lines, inverted it with the color fill option on, and filled in Masaki and Kaisen all at once, kind of with this nice bright orangey-ish yellow color as like our base color. I think it just works well with the current line color. I ended up switching it a little bit and I kind of wish I didn't. I definitely like the orange purple almost kind of contrasted look. So the color palette I ended up with, because I needed a little bit of help, all I did was go into Pinterest and type in fun color palette, and I think it was like the third option. I'll post it onto the video right here if you would wish to see what color palette I was kind of referencing. I didn't color drop or anything, I was just kind of eyeballing and making certain adjustments. So I ended up using 2 different blues, and then we have 2 different yellows. It was kind of the general color palette minus the line colors. So the line color is more of a purpley blue. So the kind of darkest blue I ended up using for the shading became more of a medium blue, which is the one I'm using for Masaki's glasses. And similarly enough, I needed to differentiate their glasses a little bit just because I think it wouldn't have stood out as much. So I made Kaisen's yellow and I made Masaki's blue. So his are more lighter in color and Masaki's are a little bit darker. Otherwise, I think the glasses would have probably melded in too much with Kaisen's hair. So Masaki is probably the one I had the most difficulty with in terms of this drawing, just because I kind of wish I made the entire piece blue first and maybe the background yellow and use the kind of medium yellow as my shading color. So you're gonna see that the blue that I'm using for the shadows at this point are closer to a lighter value compared to my medium yellow. So even though I'm using it in place of my shadows, there is like a weird contrast between them. So you could kind of see it as shadow, but I feel like it would have worked a little bit better as a highlight instead. But I kind of made that decision a little bit too late. But for the most part, I don't think it's like too bad. I was also playing around with the lighting to see if I could add more of the blue in to make it make more sense. I added a little bit more of the darker blue to Masaki's hair to kind of help push the shadows a little bit more in his hair, because like I said, the yellow and the light blue are not working super great. And then I wanted to add a little bit more of the brightest yellow that I had for more highlights. After that, we ended up doing a background. So background, I decided to do simple stripes. I'll add a white stroke around both of them. I was gonna say all of them, but there's only 2 of them. And then we'll add some kind of like sticker-like little doodles, I guess, on top, along with some text, just to kind of finish it off and make it a little bit more playful. Part of me still wishes that I ended up doing a full render, even though I didn't really have time to do like a full piece for the both of them. I still think this one turned out cute, but I think a summertime, like, I don't know, illustration would have been fun for the both of them if I did a actual full rendered piece. So I'll see in the future if I do anything more with the both of them. But hopefully you guys enjoyed today's video and seeing Kaisen and Masaki just hanging out. I'll definitely do more OC videos in the future and potentially flesh out more of their characters so you guys get to know more about them in the future. And I think that's about it in terms of what I ended up doing. So for the text and the little extra doodles, I did end up duplicating those layers using a Gaussian blur and then selecting the outside with the automatic selection, inverting it, and then we can get a nice little outline around all of our little objects. So that way you can kind of do a quick outline around everything. And I think that is it. I would like to play around probably with another color palette in the future. This one was kind of fun since it's like colors that I use a lot in my sketchbook from time to time, but I haven't done like really bright colors like this for a digital drawing. So hopefully you guys enjoyed today's video. I'll probably leave it here with you guys in the time lapse, but I'll definitely show a comparison of what my sketch in my sketchbook look like alongside with the digital drawing. But I think that's it, and I'll talk to you guys next time in the next video. Bye!